Part 40. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 391. Yan Bei followed Xiao Suesu and slowly moved towards the palace study. At this time, he seems to have become more reserved and cold compared to before. Compared with his original sharpness, he feels no different from an ordinary passerby. It seems that it is difficult to even look at him, like it was absorbed directly. He looked up and looked around. The guards in the palace seemed to be tighter than before. In just 10 minutes journey, Yan Bei had already felt the auras of at least 10 level 4 ability users. Recently, whether because of the establishment of the academy or the changes in the Earth's environment, Yan Bei always felt that there seemed to be more and more ability users. Level 4 ability users who were rarely seen in the past are now often seen in the palace. It seems that since the birth of the first level 5 ability user, the growth rate of ability users has gradually increased. At this moment, Xiao Suesu stopped, turned around and said, "Your Majesty is waiting for you in front." Yan Bei nodded and originally wanted to ask Xiao Suesu if Li Anping had been staying in the study reading recently. After thinking about it later, I decided to forget it. Li Anping must be able to hear what he said. Although he just wanted to ask casually, it was not good to think that Li Anping would just listen like this. After thinking about it, Yan Bei directly opened the study door and walked in. In the study room, 3 people can be seen directly. Li Anping is sitting behind the desk reading a book. Jing Guang stood by the window and kept looking outside. Only when Yan Baidu came, he turned his head and glanced at him. There was also a young man whom Yan Bei didn't recognize, sitting upright on a chair and looking very nervous. After Yan Bei came in, Li Anping raised his head, glanced at the 3 of them and said, "Okay, everyone is here, let's start." Jing Guang also came over after hearing this, and stood in front of Li Anping with Yan Bei and Fang Hejia. After looking at the 3 of them, Li Anping paused and said, "The potential of the 3 of you is very good. Letting you join the special operations team this time is a rare opportunity, but it also carries a very high risk." When Yan Bei and Jing Guang heard this, they both glanced at Fang Hejia. Judging from his thoughts, it seemed that the other party was only a 4th level ability user, and he was actually named by Li Anping personally as having high potential. Yan Bei suddenly remembered a recent rumor, "Fang Hejia? I don't know what is called virtualization. Can you be hit by my collapse attack?" Thinking of this, he looked at the golden light that had been in the transformed state from the time he entered the door until now. He has really become stronger. Jing Guang glanced at Fang Hejia and then turned away. His eyes seemed to be very pure, without as many things as Yan Bei's eyes. This is also related to the different training methods of the 2 during this period. Yan Bei faced various powerful 5th level ability users again and again in his dreams. It is very important to carefully test the opponent's fighting style, understand the combined state of the opponent's body and ability, and collect intelligence that the opponent inadvertently reveals. Jing Guang didn't think so much about his training. He just kept increasing his pressure, squeezing his limits again and again, and stretching his strength to the limit. Fang Hejia on the side heard Li Anping say his name. A trace of excitement flashed in his eyes, and he felt his blood boiling all over his body. Li Anping, who was sitting behind the desk, didn't care what a few people thought. He just continued, "Because of this, I called you here today just to give you some insurance." When he said this, Li Anping took out a silver-white ring from the desk drawer and threw it to Fang Hejia. "Do you know the 10-fist sword? This one is red lightning." Fang Hejia took the ring, his eyes filled with excitement. 108 10-fist swords. Of course he had heard of it and had always dreamed of owning one. Unexpectedly, today he not only met Li Anping, but also got the coveted 10-fist sword. While he was excited, Li Anping's voice also reached his ears. The red lightning he releases can basically decompose most materials into molecular states. It is a 5th level ability, which can just make up for your lack of destructive power. But this is to save your life. Don't rely too much on him, hone your abilities more. Thank you, Your Majesty. As Fang He spoke, there seemed to be flames burning in his eyes. It seemed like my whole body was on fire. Yan Bei and Jing Guang on the side had no special reaction. They each have a 10-fist sword with level 5 abilities, namely the Spear of Steel and the Bracer of Power. Fang He was just a little surprised to get red electricity. Li Anping ignored them and continued, in addition, I will also give each of you the last insurance. As he spoke, he stretched out a finger on his right hand, and saw a drop of red blood leaving directly from his fingertip. Then the drop of blood flew into the air, first flying towards the location of the golden light. Then came the second drop of blood, and the third drop of blood, all with a red line, flying towards the foreheads of the three people. The three people in Jingguang only felt a slight chill on their foreheads, and the blood had completely penetrated into their bodies. At the same time, Li Anping's voice slowly sounded in their ears. This drop of blood contains a set of simple consciousness algorithms compiled by me. It will be activated after monitoring that your vital signs are far lower than normal. After starting, it will extract the zero-point energy of the vacuum around it, and according to the surrounding environment, it will change the electronic structure of atoms and molecules to help you. At this point, Li Anping looked at the three people in front of him. Jingguang and Yan Bei were basically confused. One of them had a high school diploma, and the other couldn't even find his diploma. As for Fang He, he graduated from Academy City and was a little better, but he didn't seem to understand it very well. You three. Don't bury your head in exercise all day, read more books. Li Anping shook his head and said, in short, to put it simply, after you are beaten half to death, you will be resurrected with full health and full magic, and then increase attack and defense. Now all three of them understood. Jingguang nodded, so it means the immortal shield. Yan Bei denied, no, it's more powerful than that. This one will be stronger after resurrection. It can't be resurrected, Fang He whispered, it should only be used when seriously injured. Li Anping sighed, and then said, also, you must remember that this thing consumes my energy and it is not something that can be made casually. Don't use it indiscriminately. When taking action, you will also be the backbone of the team. You must make good use of your own strength to protect others in the team. Seeing the three people nodding repeatedly, he continued, finally, I remind you that once the consciousness algorithm I wrote confirms that you have no hope of survival, in order to prevent you from being captured alive, he will directly activate the self-destruction program and turn you into an antimatter bomb. Li Anping showed a cruel smile at the corner of his mouth, so be careful, don't die accidentally. The three people's faces tightened, and they said seriously together, yes, sir. Soon after the three people left, Lu Feng also walked into the study and met Li Anping. As the long-term head of the intelligence department, he is the head of this special operations team. Even Jingguang, Yan Bei, and Fang He must follow his command when they are in Mondo continent. In addition, this is an inspection trip after all, mainly to collect intelligence on Mondo continent. Therefore, in addition to people with abilities like Jingguang, Yan Bei, and Fang He, many physicists, chemists, sociologists, biologists and other researchers will be brought to collect various local information and provide necessary theoretical and data support for the future decisions of the Pan-Continental Alliance and Li Anping. After all, they are two completely different worlds, and it is not even certain whether the Earth and Mondo continent are in the same universe. In this case, any slight change in any cosmic parameter may have a huge impact on humans, not to mention various biological, climatic, and environmental factors. In fact, Li Anping has sent people to collect all the things that Jonah touched last time. On this alone, more than 23 kinds of microorganisms that are not on Earth were found. While talking, Li Anping directly gave Lu Feng two 10-fist swords to protect his safety. With the special equipment provided by the Royal Academy of Sciences, Li Anping believed that the expedition team should be safe as long as they did not cause trouble. After basically explaining everything he wanted to explain, Li Anping asked, "How is Li Qian? Can she take over after you leave?" Lu Feng answered cautiously, "There should be no problem. Miss Li Qian is very smart, and she has been in the intelligence department for more than 2 years. She understands the whole process." "That's good." Li Anping closed his eyes and waved his hand, saying, "Let's go. You will start to be responsible for the training of the expedition team next week. I will give you 2 weeks at most." At the moment when Li Anping closed his eyes, his attention was focused on the incarnation of mind energy. The incarnation of mind energy stood on the white ground, and around him were dozens of staff members wearing bloated clothes like aviation suits. They were either testing environmental data or controlling engineering robots to build an outpost base around the gate of penetration. And Li Anping's mind energy incarnation stood in the middle of the 2 gates of penetration, responsible for guarding the gate of penetration. On the other side, in front of the gate leading to the Mondo continent, a tracked intelligent robot was slowly driving towards the gate. Before the special operations team entered, the staff here would first use the robot to conduct a simple exploration of the area near the Mondo continent gate. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 392. New Dongyang, East 23rd District. This is a large area like a primeval forest. Because of the dense monsters, even some bounty hunters who specialize in finding rare monsters are reluctant to go here. But today, this desolate place welcomed a group of guests. Lu Feng walked in the front, and behind him, there were a total of 10 men and women. Among them were yellow, white, and black people, and it seemed that many nationalities were gathered. In addition to Yan Bei, Jing Guang, and Fang Hejia, there were Tony Abel and Brian from the Federation, as well as people from Ice Castle, Southern Xinjiang, and Code Country. They are all elites found by Daxia Dragonbird and the Imaginary Number Agency from all over the Earth. Under the leadership of Lu Feng, they will be responsible for their tasks of exploring the alien world and protecting the accompanying scientists. Lu Feng walked in front and said, "We are very tight on time. We only have about a week. During this week, we will organize a field training like this every morning, and learn common sense about the magic world in the afternoon. In the evening, you will take turns to fight against the wizard Jonah." In addition to what Lu Feng said, Jonah will use the language proficiency technique to solve the language part. In addition, they will also receive a series of vaccines urgently developed by the Royal Academy of Sciences to help fight against various pathogens currently detected by robots on the other side of the gate. In addition, there are various trainings that Lu Feng has compressed into 1 week. After 1 week, they will step into the gate and start the investigation of the Mondo continent to determine whether the Earth will use an alliance, hostility, or other attitude towards the Mondo continent in the next period of time. 7 days later, before the investigation team was about to enter the Mondo continent through the gate. In the northernmost part of the Mondo continent, in the cloud courtyard on the highest peak of the entire continent, a unique meeting was also taking place. Including the Saint Laurent Empire, the 5 most powerful countries in the entire Mondo continent all sent their representatives. And there is only one person in the entire continent who can summon the representatives of these 5 powerful countries in just a few days, that is Dionysus, who is known as a demigod and is also the spiritual leader of all the mages in the Mage Guild. He represents the most powerful man in the world. Have you heard that the blood of Lord Dionysus before he became a wizard? Well, it is said that it is a boy named Adam, and this meeting seems to be related to him. Is it true? You said this boy. Don't talk nonsense. It is said that he has passed the blood monitoring and is indeed the blood of Lord Demigod. Just as the representatives of the 5 countries were whispering, a teenager who looked only in his teens walked in. He looked very handsome and wore a grey robe. The robe looked very ordinary and inconspicuous, but it was a shocking message in the eyes of the representatives of the 5 countries. It's actually the shadow robe. Lord Dionysus actually gave it to him. Although Dionysus did not attend this meeting, the robe draped over Adam alone has made the originally careless people put away their frivolous expressions, and look at Adam with jealousy, surprise, and envy. Adam ignored the emotions of the crowd and went straight to the main seat at the conference table. Behind him, Cutia and Night Beast, who changed into magicians' clothes and covered their heads with cloaks. Looking at the scrutiny, questioning, or flattering eyes of the crowd looking at him, Adam, or Shang Tian, smiled lightly, as if he could not feel the pressure contained in these eyes at all. He coughed lightly and said, "Everyone. The main reason I asked you to come here this time is that in the near future, a huge disaster will occur in the entire Mondo continent. This disaster is so terrible that it will overturn the countries where you are present. No, not only that, it will even destroy the glory of the wizard. Destroy all the humans in the entire Mondo continent." Adam said this right at the beginning, which really made everyone feel a little alarmist. Those who were sent to attend the meeting, not to mention their magical attainments, at least they are all old foxes in interpersonal relationships and politics. Adam's pyramid-like words are impossible to impress them. But he didn't care. Seeing that everyone was silent, he continued, "At the western end of the continent, in the Amara Basin, a door to hell has been opened. From that door, countless demons will pour out. They have powerful power, but are completely immersed in endless desires. Their appearance is destined to set off a bloody storm on the Mondo continent." Adam's words immediately caused everyone to whisper. "Demons. Hell. Mr. Adam, are you sure you are not kidding? Demons that can overthrow the entire continent, do they also have the powerful power of the demigod? The magic civilization of Mondo continent has been developing for countless years. Although it lacks the popularity brought by science on Earth due to the limitation of the number of magicians, through the development of magic, most magicians have long confirmed that the so-called gods, heaven, demons, and hell are just tools made up by religion to control believers. It can be said that in the entire Mondo continent, as long as there are existences above the lower-level mages, as well as most of the upper-class nobles, they are all atheists, and firmly believe in the power of magic. The title of demigod Dionysus is purely out of awe of power. Magic, this is the biggest belief in the entire Mondo continent. Adam was also deeply aware of this, so he was not surprised by everyone's suspicion, but stretched out his hand and handed the palm to Cutia. In the surprised eyes of everyone, a pure white longsword was handed into Adam's hand. "This is Holy Sword Cardinus, how is it possible? This holy sword should have disappeared during the final Holy War. In the historical records of the Mondo continent, the Holy Sword Cardinus was forged by Odysseus, the first emperor to unify the entire country more than 4,000 years ago, and was called the Holy King. He gathered a total of 200 of the world's best magicians at the time to create this holy sword, hoping that through the inheritance of this sword, his dynasty would prosper forever. Unfortunately, even with the greatest power, the country he created ended up being divided from within. The holy sword Cardinus also disappeared afterwards. Legend has it that this holy sword has all kinds of incredible powers, even for an ordinary person. After holding the holy sword, you can have the power to destroy the city with one strike. It is considered to be the most powerful magic weapon in the entire Mondo continent. There is even a rumor about the holy sword Cardinus. When the holy sword appears again, the Mondo continent will also be unified again. As a magician present murmured these words, the holy sword in Adam's hand glowed with bursts of milky white light. Seemed to wrap up Adam's entire body. Most of the magicians present could not completely believe the so-called rumors of the reunification of the continent, but when faced with the holy sword Cardinus, which was known as the most powerful magic weapon, they were still distracted for a moment. "Everyone. The Holy Sword was born just because the entire continent is about to face an unprecedented disaster. If you don't want to believe it, you can send people to the Amara Basin after you go back to find the portal that transmits evil spirits. Facing the shadow robe given by the demigod and the Holy Sword in Adam's hand, everyone present seemed to no longer reject the so-called evil theory. "Sir, may I ask what kind of existence the evil you are talking about is?" Adam withdrew the Holy Sword and continued, "They have similar appearances to humans, but are more evil and greedy. They do not have magical power, but they possess another kind of power called technology and superpowers." Adam clapped his hands, and the servant on the side immediately brought a pistol. "This is the weapon I seized from them." "They call it a pistol," Adam said to a magician among the representatives, "Sir Lawrence. I will use this pistol to attack you next to demonstrate the power." "Come on," Lawrence said carelessly, "but how are you going to use it to attack? I can't see any part of his body that can attack others. Are you going to throw it over and hit me?" Lawrence's words brought a chuckle. But the next moment, a loud gunshot interrupted everyone's laughter. Lawrence frowned, picked up the twisted and deformed bullets on the ground with the hands of a mage, and asked curiously, "Oh? He attacks by spraying these metal particles?" "Yes. This kind of weapon can be mass-produced by the demons. Quantity is their biggest advantage." Lawrence shook his head. "With this kind of attack power, even if an ordinary high-level mage lets him shoot for a day, he still won't be able to break through the protective force field." The night beast on the side couldn't help but said, "But these are only the most basic weapons. They also have many more powerful weapons, called tanks and missiles, and they can all be mass-produced. If the upper-level mage can't do it, then just send a few magicians." This sentence seemed to represent the thoughts of all the magicians present. Most of them don't seem to pay much attention to so-called technological weapons. In their opinion, the pistol Adam presented could only be regarded as an interesting toy. However, the superpowers Adam mentioned later were considered by them to be the abilities of a warlock. Got a little more attention. "We already understand the power of evil spirits, so what are the plans of the demigod?" One of the representatives said what everyone present wanted to ask the most. "They value the will of demigods more than some illusory demon that doesn't even have magic. Just like people in developed countries look at tribes in the primitive jungle. Demons who don't understand magic are just ignorant beasts in their eyes, even if these beasts have mastered some special skills. Father has recently made a new discovery in magic and has devoted himself wholeheartedly to research. Even I can't go to the laboratory to find him. However, he said before that if anyone on the mainland can catch an evil demon, he will personally spend his magic power to permanently solidify a 7th-level magic for this warrior." Before Adam could finish his words, a strange light immediately appeared in the eyes of everyone present. Compared to demons without magical abilities, the solidification magic of demigods obviously attracts their attention more. Immediately, more than half of the representatives stated that they would send troops and mages to capture the evil spirits. Looking at the backs of the representatives in front of him passing through the portal and slowly leaving, Adam showed a smile. The night beast on the side was a little worried. Adam, is this okay? Why don't you show them the more powerful weapons on the earth? They are so underestimated, and they will suffer a great loss at that time." "I want them to suffer." Adam laughed softly. "Uncle, yeah, what do you think is the biggest difference between the magic world and the earth? Is it magic and technology, two different civilizations? No, it is the cognition of the world. Earthlings understand the world with technology, and the people here rely on magic to understand the world. Before paying the most, they will not take technology seriously. Thousands of years of history of conquering nature with magic will make them have a unique pride when facing the Earth's army. In their current view, Earthlings who do not master magic are no different from primitive people." Adam turned his head and walked to the border of the cloud courtyard. Looking at the Mondo continent under his feet, he slowly said, If they realize the power of the earth too early, they will not fight easily. What we have to do is to stop them from trying. Before negotiating with the earth, let the blood and hatred continue to escalate. Drag Li Anping and Daxia Longke into the vortex of this war. Kudia on the side said, I have no interest in fighting, but Dionysus, are you sure there is no problem? Putting aside the issue of your identity, I don't think he completely agrees with you. This guy's talent alone is too terrifying. It is hard to imagine that he can increase his power to this level with magic. You just give him so much scientific information on the earth. Aren't you afraid of raising a tiger to harm yourself? Adam shook his head. I said, this is a problem of cognition. Dionysus's talent is indeed terrifying. If he was born on earth, he might also have the hope of the ultimate, but the experience of the magic world has limited his vision. To change this cognition, it takes time, not talent. And during this time, he will become our best weapon to resist Li Anping. Adam raised his hands and made a hugging gesture towards the boundless land under the mountain, looking like he wanted to hold the entire Mondo continent in his arms. Li Anping, can you feel it? Your sinful life will soon be ended by my own hands. At the same time, Lu Feng and his team had already put on their equipment at the underwater base. On the surface, they were all wearing coarse linen shirts, but under these medieval clothes, they were all wearing the latest nano armor created by the Royal Academy of Sciences, and they were hidden by optical camouflage. Lu Feng looked back at everyone and said, let's go. The next moment, a group of 18 people, including 11 capable people and 7 academy students, passed through the gate one by one. After arriving at the White Land, they will pass through the gate of the Mondo continent and start this adventure in the magic world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 393. Tony Abel's legs crossed the boundary gate, and what appeared in front of him was an endless jungle. According to the information given by Jonah, this is the western part of the Mondo continent, known as the Umla Basin. The air sucked in the nose feels a little moist, which is the same as the scientists behind the humans judged before setting off. This should be a continental basin, created by crustal movement, and the air is very humid. Tony looked up at the sky and could only see a huge fireball slowly burning in the sky. According to robot detection, the Mondo continent here, like the Earth, also belongs to every solar system. But astronomers have yet to discover any familiar celestial objects in the night sky here. Maybe it's too far away from the Earth, or maybe it's not in the same universe as the Earth. But Tony doesn't care about this. He only needs to know that the gravity and air composition here are suitable for ordinary people to survive. Just when Tony was stunned, a blond man in front of him had already said hello to him. Hey Tony, come over and help me build the barracks. The golden retriever is more than 2 meters tall and looks like a standing polar bear. Every time I speak, my voice sounds like I have a loudspeaker. This blond man's name is Ivan, and he is a member of the Nuvizin family of Ice Castle. Before Li Anping ascended the throne, he escorted Sergei, the leader of Ice Castle's splinter organization and Bloodborne, to Tianjing. He is also one of Ice Castle's current elite ability users. But in Adam's view, Ivan is more like a big bear that can walk upright, although their bloodline ability werewolf form has nothing to do with bears. As for Tony Abel, who had been possessed by Li Anping's clone and had been manipulated and trained for a year, his combat effectiveness was naturally considered elite. Especially his experience of being possessed has aroused the curiosity and envy of countless people. Ivan is naturally one of them. When the team was first formed, he expressed full kindness to Tony. Tony took the components handed over by Ivan and began to set up the camp. This newly developed component is self-scaling and only requires the user to select the program in advance. This allows the components to expand and splice themselves to complete the construction of the camp. On the sidelines, others were also busy, either building camps or detecting the surrounding environment. Brian, who came from the Federation together with Tony, is a bloodline user with the ability of the Flame Wolf, who once worked with Tony to stop Seagram and Fiberzo. He was debugging in front of a huge sphere. This is a simple satellite that they specially brought here. There are more than 20 similar satellites on the opposite side of the boundary gate. They will be launched one after another to explore the planet that is currently named Magic Star by the Royal Academy of Sciences. 2 hours passed, and with the help of superpowers and high technology, the entire camp was quickly set up. Most of the ability users stayed in the camp, except for Yanbei, who left alone and began to explore the entire Umla Basin. Other scientists began to conduct various planned physical and chemical experiments in simple laboratories to determine the differences between this world and Earth. There are also scientists who collect soil, plant, and animal specimens. Of course, this often requires the assistance of ability users. According to the plan of the Pan-Continent Alliance, they will stay near the boundary crossing gate for about 3 days. 3 days later, they will start their own different tasks. Because the appearance of the people in Mondo Continent is more similar to that of Caucasians, Jingguang, transformation, Lufeng, face change, and a group of Caucasians will find ways to blend into the local society of Mondo Continent. Establish certain social relations on the internet and obtain the information currently needed by the Pan-Continental Alliance. People of the yellow race like Yanbei, Fanghaja, and Fangyuelan will focus on all inaccessible areas and be responsible for collecting information on the natural and ecological environment of the Mondo continent. After activating the ability of the steel spear, Yanbei, who was wrapped in a layer of silver-white metal, was hovering in the sky of the Amara Basin at subsonic speed. The ability of the steel spear in Yanbei's hand comes from Vivian, a former 5th-level ability user of the Imaginary Number Agency. After activating his ability, not only did he have a pair of steel-like wings that shot out directly from his back. Being wrapped in metal all over his body, his physical fitness in terms of strength, speed, reaction, agility, etc. will be greatly improved. The armor that wraps him is not only amazing in defense, but also hides many weapons with special abilities. The thought energy in Yanbei's body was transformed by the armor. It directly turned into a white turbulence, which looked like some kind of plasma jet engine, causing Yanbei's speed to increase again and fly towards the boundary of Umla Basin. Under the observation of Yanbei. This basin is the same as the information Jonah told, it is a completely uninhabited land. Various animals live in the vast forest. However, because the basin has a variety of rare animal and plant resources, Yanbei can also see some hunters or herb gatherers working in the basin. Yanbei was flying at high speed in the sky, and these ordinary people couldn't even notice his presence. And Yanbei was unwilling to communicate with them. This is not his mission. And according to the plan of the Alliance Staff Department, this time the Earth's intelligence acquisition of the Magic Star will be like a ghost, with as little impact as possible on the entire Magic Star, leaving no unnecessary traces. Like a ghost, it passed through them, sensed them, understood them, but made the other party unaware. Yanbei circled in the sky and planned to end today's patrol and return to the camp first. But just when he turned around, a quack roar suddenly came from the sky. I saw a flying bird as big as a car falling from the sky and grabbing towards Yanbei's position. Oh! Is this the animal here? Yanbei turned his head and looked at the giant bird rushing towards him. The other party obviously regarded him as prey. It's more fierce than the animals on Earth. The next moment, a small dot appeared on the head of the giant bird, and the collapse force field squeezed his entire head into an invisible dot. The headless bird corpse fell to the ground along inertia. And Yanbei didn't even look at him, and turned directly to fly towards the camp. Just as Yanbei activated his ability, in a small city dozens of kilometers away from the Amara Basin, A woman with wine-red hair suddenly opened her eyes and said to Donger beside her, "They are coming." Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 394. 4 days later, Lu Feng, Jingguang and his party appeared in a small town on the border of the Umla Basin. In addition to Lu Feng and Jingguang, there are 3 ability users in their party: Ryan, who masters the Flame Wolf, Tony, who was possessed by Li Enping, and Yvonne from the Ice Castle. In addition, they were accompanied by 3 sociologists, economists, and military experts. In the small town, although their clothes were as shabby and rough as those worn by ordinary civilians, their relatively delicate skin, tall and strong figures, and confident eyes distinguished them from the residents of the small town. The economist Frant rubbed his eyes. Because he is short-sighted, it was rare for him to wear contact lenses during this inspection, and he felt a little uncomfortable. He and Lu Feng on the side said, "According to our observations during this period, they are still stuck in the era of using animal power, but because of the existence of magic, their agriculture is extremely developed, and they don't have to worry about any natural disasters. This makes them the food problem has been completely solved, but their commodity economy has not developed." Lauren, the sociologist on the side, added, "Because there is a natural class in their society, and that is magicians. Compared with our ability users over there, the society here has developed earlier and stronger because of magic. The dependence is also much stronger. Agriculture, construction, military and other aspects all need to rely on the power of magicians. And because magic can solve everything, no one develops science." Lu Feng nodded. "So civilians without magic abilities have become parasites attached to magicians, and they have become existences that can be abandoned at any time. Even if there are no civilians, magicians here can survive alone." Several people around him nodded. Through their observations over the past few days, they already knew that the world in front of them was somewhat similar to the Middle Ages and was a severely deformed society. The food plants were transformed by magic, and they were all planted neatly on the land that had been planned and transformed in advance. The only thing farmers have to do is sow and harvest. All the buildings in the town were jointly built by lower-level mages, and almost all of them were boxy and of the same style, just like the brown linen clothes worn by civilians. For mages, civilians are just consumables, used to reduce part of the magic consumption. All daily necessities and food are basically distributed evenly by mages, raising the common people like pigs. Those without magical talents are civilians, while those with magical talents are naturally superior to others. Mages that civilians can do can naturally do it, and mages that civilians can't do can do it even more. On the continent of Mondo, mages are the first class, and other civilians can only become warriors if they want to stand out. Or have some special talents, such as soldiers, officials, chefs, etc. These are considered second-class people. Those who have not mastered skills useful to mages are civilians. It's the third class. They must unconditionally obey the mage's arrangements and work for more than 10 months a year before they can be allocated materials sufficient to ensure their survival. As for the lowest fourth class of people, they are prisoners of various defeated countries, criminals, aliens, etc. They are considered slaves, almost like beasts. They can be bought, sold, and killed at will. And facing this kind of life, civilians who only possess medieval weapons are unable to resist. As long as a most ordinary high-ranking mage turns on the protective force field, even if he stands there and allows civilians to attack, he will not be harmed at all. The so-called change of dynasty is nothing more than replacing a group of mages and officials to rule. Lu Feng and others looked at the civilians on the street and could only see numbness and emptiness in their eyes. In addition to eating and sleeping every day, they live a life day after day, year after year. There is no internet and no toilet. There were no lights and no television. Most of them will probably never leave their villages or towns throughout their lives. Almost none of them are literate, and they never have any innovative ideas, because almost all the innovations they can think of currently can be done by magic, and they can do it better. And thousands of years of rule have already tamed all civilians like sheep. Lu Feng tried to change his face. Talk to some civilians and discuss some scientific, political, and financial issues with them. For example, the earth may be round. Why is the mage born to rule the common people, or to borrow a little money to do business, and so on? But the civilians he talked to might be surprised at Lu Feng's remarks at first, but after being curious, they would run out of interest and leave after a few words, returning to their daily lives again. It's as if there is a huge invisible inertia behind them. Some even reported it to local officials to report Lu Feng's reactionary remarks. Because the mage not only rules them, but is also their universal nanny. If you are sick, just pray to the mage and you will be cured. If there is an earthquake, just pray to the mage and it will be fine. If the crops don't grow, just pray to the mage. There may be a small number of people in history who have awakened and want to break the current situation, but they will soon be overwhelmed by the similar people around them, and finally disappear from everyone and return to their original numb life. He Jingguang exhaled and looked at the mud buildings around him. These houses were all made of mud. According to the principles of mechanics, they should not last long, but because of magic, they exist here. Jingguang frowned. What a hellish world. He thought that if he was born in such a world, he would rather die. Compared with a life of poverty, hardship, numbness, and ignorance, the state of not even knowing one's own ignorance and numbness and feeling satisfied is more terrifying. Lu Feng looked at a shop in front and said, "There is a restaurant in front. Let's go there to take a rest and collect some information." Fallen said, "It seems that other information is unnecessary. It is mainly the information about the army and the mage. This kind of information may not be easily obtained." Watson, a military expert who rarely spoke, also said, "And from the information we have now, the army here is either a mage army or has no combat effectiveness. With the mastery of zero-point vacuum energy, they have infinite energy thousands of years in advance, but lack the corresponding ideological and spiritual level to match, which has created this deformed social structure." "Let's try it anyway," Lu Feng said, and then walked into the store. In the currency system of Mondo continent, civilians still use ancient metal currency. With the technological level of the Earth, this simple metal currency is naturally very easy to counterfeit. Before coming here, the Alliance counterfeited a bunch of them for Lu Feng and others to use based on Jonah's memory. But even if they had a lot of money, they didn't have many places to spend it in this backward ancient society. Looking at the wheat cakes and black bread placed on the table, Jingguang, Lu Feng, and others all showed helpless expressions. Lack of support from modern industry, coupled with the already low living standards of civilians. The food here is extremely simple. Of course, this may also be because the town where Lu Feng and his friends are now is not prosperous. Anyway, lacking the support of various additives and seasonings, the bread and wheat cakes in front of them are really a kind of food that is too difficult to swallow for Jingguang and others. Feeling the rough thing like a tree trunk rubbing against his throat and being swallowed slowly, Tony frowned. Sociologist Furlan stood up. "I'm going to the toilet." Seeing Lu Feng nodded, he walked out the door. Of course, he didn't really want to go to the toilet, but wanted to find a place where no one was to solve his lunch with dry food. Compared with the food in front of them, the compressed dry food provided by the military has become a delicacy. However, in order to blend into the social system of Mondo continent, Lu Feng and his team did not bring too much dry food. Fullant is eating less now. Finding a corner, Fullant controlled the nano armor and took out the dry food placed in the storage belt. But just when he wanted to eat the dry food, a black shadow appeared behind Fullant. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 395. A few minutes later, Fullant returned to the seats of the crowd. Lu Feng glanced at him, but found that his eyes were a little dazed, and the whole person looked a little dazed. He frowned and said, "Are you okay?" Jingguang also looked over. He slowly stood up, and said to Tony beside him, "Something is wrong, you use your mind to look around." Although the magicians can sense the mind, because they have been accustomed to sensing magic fluctuations for thousands of years, their ability to sense the mind is not strong. As long as the ability users do not expose the mind outside the body, they cannot feel it. So along the way, in order not to attract attention, Lu Feng and his team carefully hid their mind and did not use it to guard the surroundings. Especially Jingguang's mind, it was too powerful and eye-catching, and it was easy to be surrounded by magicians. A few seconds later, Tony and others changed their faces. In the perception of mind, they could feel that many soldiers holding weapons in the nearby streets were slowly approaching their location. At the same time, Furlan stretched out his hand. He was under the spell of charm humans and took out a burst rune given to him by the wizard from his arms. With a loud bang, the terrible explosion resounded through the sky of the small town. The earthen house of the entire restaurant collapsed completely. The diners died without reacting to the shockwave and flames of the explosion. 500 meters away, a young wizard with gorgeous clothes and a monocle on his cheek looked at the explosion in the distance and said with a smile, "It seems to be successful. This burst rune is enough to blow down the city wall. I hope those evil demons will not die and fail to deliver the task." Another middle-aged wizard on the side said, "According to the information provided by Adam, the warriors among these evil demons have strong vitality and defense. I am afraid that a burst rune is not enough to kill them." "No," the kid from the Farah family rushed up. "Damn, does this kid want to rob people?" At this moment, the faces of the two changed at the same time. A golden beam of light shot up from the explosion site, like a miracle, and opened a big hole in the clouds in the sky. Endless golden thoughts emerged from Jingguang's body. In the explosion just now, everyone was covered in his thoughts and was unharmed, except Folland. Lauren screamed. I saw that Folland, who had taken out the burst rune, had fallen to the ground. His head was baptized by flames and shock waves, and his face had become completely disfigured. However, he was protected by nano armor below his head, so he was still safe and sound. But even so, he was already dead. Compared with Lauren, who was a scholar, other ability users and military expert Watson were not so panicked. "It's an ambush, but we don't know whether it is aimed at our identity." Jingguang looked at Lu Feng and said, "How is it?" After saying this, Tony, Yvonne, and Brian around him all looked at Lu Feng, waiting for his decision. "Leave it to you, let's go first." Lu Feng looked at the street where the smoke and dust from the explosion gradually dissipated, and the sound of armor clacking rang out. Rows of fully armed soldiers were surrounding them from all sides. Each soldier was emitting colorful light. Obviously, they were all blessed with magic. "Anyway, let's break out first." Lu Feng pointed to the east. "If we get separated, we will gather at our last camp. Jingguang, you are responsible for protecting and covering us. Lauren and Watson, you follow me." The next moment, the silver-white nano armor had wrapped everyone's heads, and the light and shadow camouflage was activated, turning their bodies into invisible state. But Jingguang was not as low-key as them. The silver-white nano armor wrapped him from head to toe, and he turned into a silver human figure. At the same time, the golden mind roared like a tsunami, flooding the entire town. The information fed back by the mind, infrared in the nano armor, sonar. The information fed back by the radiation and other detection devices all let Jingguang know the situation of the entire battlefield. In the infrared vision, the team members who were invisible with optical camouflage were hiding in the corner, waiting for Jingguang to open a way for them out of the encirclement. Jingguang glanced casually. The next moment, a wizard flying in the sky had come into his sight. Upper Wizard Temir. Farah the wizard smiled at Jingguang, as if he saw countless rewards. He said, Silver White Evil Demon, if you surrender, you can suffer less injuries. Jingguang ignored him, just stretched out a palm, and the next moment, the golden mind cannon shot out in a brutal and completely unreasonable manner. The mental energy cannon with a diameter of more than 30 meters completely submerged the mage. Not only him, but also the soldiers, buildings, and the ground around him were all covered by the golden mental energy that pressed in like a tsunami. Whether it was the protective force field, magic armor, or mana shield, all the protective means were turned into dust in the face of this extremely barbaric and naked violence, under the impact of the nearly infinite golden mental energy. When the golden mental energy cannon slowly dissipated in the air, the entire east side of the town had become a white land. Whether it was the previous mage, soldiers, or buildings, they all disappeared. Jingguang could see through infrared vision that the invisible team members had left to the east. He nodded and turned around to look at the other side of the encirclement. Just as he turned his head, two spells hit his body one after another. Sun Strike. Ice Ball. Two spell energies, one red and one blue, hit Jingguang's body directly. Although the Mondo continent did not develop science, in the long-term practice, the mages would also summarize some simple rules. For example, heat expands and cold contracts, and the destructive power of the two attacks of burning and freezing is far greater than 1 + 1 is greater than 2. If it was a simple nano armor, maybe they would succeed. But whether it was Jingguang's mind or the molecular stagnation layer covering the surface of the nano armor, it was not freezing or burning. This was always broken by the simple acceleration and deceleration of molecular motion. Seeing the silver-white evil demon floating in the air unscathed, the two mages 500 meters away exclaimed, "How is it possible? Power of a wizard." The next moment, seeing the golden light flashing, it rushed in front of them with a long golden tail flame. The two of them had simultaneously activated the spells blessed by the magic props on their bodies. Flash. Slow movement. Strength exhausted. Looking at the wizard who suddenly teleported away in front of him, and his own body that suddenly slowed down, Jingguang shouted directly, and the golden mind energy was like a volcanic eruption, rushing in all directions. Feeling the incredible and majestic power in the golden mind energy, the faces of the two wizards changed wildly. They screamed, "How is it possible? Using power so wastefully, is your power unlimited? This way of fighting. It's just like a child squandering gold coins." No matter how surprised, unbelieving, and frightened they were, under their pale faces, the golden mind energy was like endless, completely covering and engulfing the area within a radius of several kilometers. Terrifying shocks and explosions happened all the time around them, magic shields, protective force fields, flashes, steel bodies. One after another, protective spells were cast by them, each one was just right, and each contained skills that were countless times better than Jingguang's simple release of mind energy. If the two mages were surprised at first, but still somewhat disdained the rough methods of the evil demon in front of them, then when the spells were broken by the violent mind energy, when the imagined state of exhaustion of the opponent did not appear, but their own strength was gradually exhausted, despair and disbelief appeared on their faces. How is it possible? Why can your power be so abundant? With such a rough use, even a wizard can't last so long. I don't believe it, this is an illusion. Yes, it must be an illusion. Jingguang ignored the desperate roars of the two. He just increased the output of mind energy again. The faces of the two people on the verge of collapse were completely crushed. A few seconds later, the huge golden fireball had enveloped the entire town. From a distance, it looked like a golden sun was slowly rising from the ground. Just as Lu Feng and his group were besieged, Yan Bei and his group, who were passing by a snowy mountain, were also besieged. The boundless army of more than 100,000 dead spirits directly trapped the group in the valley. About 10 kilometers away from the town where Jingguang was besieged. Dong-er looked at the huge fireball rising slowly from the ground, and said to Adam, who was still in the cloud courtyard, through the communicator, they encountered it, but Jing Guang may have broken through the 5th energy level, and ordinary upper-level mages are not his opponents. Is that so? Adam thought for a while and said, then are there any survivors? Dong-er's pupils kept shrinking. It seems that he can see the situation in the distance, there should be some civilians alive. Kill them. In short, we can't let the mages know too early that the earth has the power of wizards and above. Think of a reason. Got it? This is Adam's idea, let the mages always maintain their pride, and show the power of the earth to the mage world little by little. They should neither take it too seriously nor underestimate it. Before the mage world really faces up to the strength of the earth, they should try their best to arrange the two sides to keep clashing until the grievances between them are difficult to resolve anyway. Of course, Adam also knows that it is impossible to do these perfectly, and he just tries his best. At this moment, Dong-er's voice came again, we found the satellite they launched. Do you want to destroy it? Of course, don't leave any of them, and completely cut off their communication. Adam showed a cruel smile. If all the expedition teams sent by the Earth are left behind, what do you think Li Anping will do with his personality? If the Mage Guild and the 5 Empires don't send enough wizards, I don't think they can keep Yanbei and Jingguang. Adam smiled, who knows? At the same time, on the Earth, Li Qian connected to the communication channel with Li Anping. Your Majesty, we have lost contact with Lu Feng and others. Lost contact, Li Anping said indifferently, tell me in detail. It's not just a loss of contact. All 27 satellites we launched on the magic planet have lost connection. They may have all been attacked. Satellites were attacked, Li Anping frowned. According to Jonah's information, people in the magic world should still not have the concept of satellites. Only a few powerful wizards know that the earth under their feet is a sphere. But it is unlikely that a wizard will discover and attack satellites tens of thousands of meters high. Not to mention being attacked at the same time. Also, before the loss of contact, Lu Feng's 2 teams were all attacked. I know a flash of lightning flashed in Li Anping's eyes, and the next moment, the whole person disappeared from the palace. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 396. After passing through several corridors, Li Anping walked along the underground corridor towards the military folding gate under Daxia Lonke. Along the way, countless people with special abilities and staff knelt down to salute him, looking like a person riding the wind and waves. In order to be able to directly send troops to the underwater base and cross the cross-world gate, the Alliance established 2 folding gate halls in the Virtual Number Agency and the Daxia Lonke base respectively, which can transport the Earth's army to the underwater base at any time and anywhere, and then cross the folding gate and enter the other world. As Li Anping walked along, his figure had been captured by countless cameras and transformed into various signals to be transmitted to countless senior officials. Li Qian's information was the first to be accepted by Li Anping. Your Majesty, where are you going? Li Anping replied casually as he walked, didn't you say that you lost contact with them? I'll go find them. Li Qian hesitated for a moment, but still said, but according to the analysis of the General Staff, Your Majesty, it's better not to go too deep into the magic world. The so-called General Staff was recently formed by Li Anping himself, and a group of top elites from all walks of life were selected to help him plan some strategies for the other world. Because considering that he may face many different worlds in the future, although Li Anping has strong brain power, it is impossible to always think completely, so he needs such a group of elites to assist him. Help him set many strategies. In general, the General Staff is responsible for helping Li Anping to make plans, but the specific decision is still left to Li Anping. As for the countermeasures for the magic world, the General Staff and Li Anping are unified on one point. That is, Li Anping's body must not go deep into the magic world, or even go to the magic world to carry out various battles and attacks. There are two main considerations for doing this. One is that it will easily drag the two worlds into a complete war. The General Staff believed that it was very unwise to act rashly before the situation between the enemy and us was clear. The second one was more practical, that is, the so-called strategic depth. As long as Li Anping's mind incarnation could sit in the gate of penetration, Li Anping himself could reach the underwater base and the White Land at any time through the folding gate. Then the Earth side could put the most intense battle on the opponent's territory. And once the opponent pulled the battlefield to the Earth, considering the destructive power of Li Anping and Seagram, it was very easy to cause the situation that even if the battle was won, the Earth side would still suffer heavy losses. The same is true for the magic world. Even if they want to fight, they must put the battlefield opposite the gate of penetration and fight on the magic star. For example, the worst case scenario. Li Anping went to the magic world, and the so-called demigod, Dionysus, whose current strength is unknown, came to the Earth. Then compared with the medieval society of Mondo continent, the Earth side must suffer more heavy losses. And as long as Li Anping still guards the gate of penetration, the Earth side will have an absolute advantage whether it fights or retreats. Of course, if even Li Anping cannot withstand the opponent's attack and can only retreat to Earth, then there is nothing to talk about. Li Anping agrees with this strategy of the General Staff. But his style of doing things has always been straightforward and unstoppable. So after learning that the expedition team lost contact, he wanted to know what happened immediately. And this does not require him to really go deep into the magic world, just need his body to guard the gate. The mind chi incarnation goes there, or the body crosses the gate, but does not go deep. Both methods are okay. So Li Anping replied, "Let the troops at the gate send reconnaissance robots to search for the situation of the expedition team. I will be there soon, don't worry, I will not go deep into the magic world." The expedition team suddenly disappeared, and all our satellites were attacked. This situation is definitely unusual. If someone is against us, then I will find them first. Since Li Anping has made a decision, Li Qian also knows that he can't stop it. I understand, I will notify the outpost immediately. A minute later, Li Anping had crossed the gate of the submarine base and arrived at the White Land. The general and the incarnation of the mind energy of the outpost here appeared in front of him. Li Anping directly took Seagram out of his arms. Then he threw it into the body of the incarnation of the mind energy. "You stay here for this period of time and don't cause trouble." A large group of people on the side saw Seagram's appearance, although they were surprised, but Li Anping didn't say anything. They naturally wouldn't ask. The general on the side stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, the unmanned reconnaissance aircraft has crossed the gate and set off from the temporary camp." Before Jingguang and others left, the temporary camp in the magic world had already hidden the entire gate with optical camouflage and fortifications, becoming a temporary base. This is also to prevent the existence of people like Jonah who accidentally discovered the gate again on the opposite side. Hearing the general's report, Li Anping nodded and walked towards the location of the gate. He thought about it along the way just now, and decided to go there in person by himself, and release high-frequency electromagnetic waves through his own strong magnetic field to find the traces of the expedition team. According to the data from the satellite, the planet where the magic world is located is about 4/5 the size of the Earth. In addition to the so-called Mondo continent, there are two relatively small continental plates and countless islands. Although this time it is not as obvious as the missile last time, the search targets are all on the surface, which makes it significantly more difficult. But Li Anping knows the communication channel of the other party's nano armor. If he searches by electromagnetic waves, even if it takes several hours, it is much more convenient than flying over to find it by himself. This is also the reason why Li Anping plans to let his original body go there. So under the attention of everyone, Li Anping directly stepped over the gate. But after stepping out of the gate, what appeared in front of Li Anping was not the imagined base or Amara basin. What appeared in front of Li Anping was a huge, empty library. Boundless, row after row of bookshelves filled Li Anping's sight. But the words on the cover of the book were not any kind of words that Li Anping knew. And 100 meters in front of Li Anping, a man with silver hair had his back to him, sitting upright on a chair, reading something carefully. Judging from the speed at which the other party turned the paper, the other party's reading speed was very fast, and it could be said that he could read 10 lines at a glance. With his super eyesight, Li Anping could see that there were many books on the other person's desk, and the words on them were very familiar to him. He was even familiar with the contents of the books. 3rd grade natural science, 1st year junior high school mathematics, and high school physics. They were all textbooks of this kind. The silver-haired man stretched and said in fluent Daxia language, "I didn't expect to catch a big fish the first time I pulled in the net." Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 397. The man with silver-white hair had a face as pale as paper. It gave people the feeling that he had never seen the sun. His eye sockets were deeply sunken and his cheekbones were prominent, making him look malnourished. But Li Anping knew that this was just an appearance. The look in his eyes was like seeing countless stars flowing and the world changing. In Li Anping's eyes, the other party was like a black hole in the void, swallowing and spitting out huge energy in the surrounding space at every moment. If the destructive power was leaked a little bit, it would probably be enough to cause a shocking catastrophe in the entire East continent. The so-called earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis were just commonplace. Seeing this, Li Anping had already understood that the ability to extract vacuum zero-point energy in the void had become an instinctive existence for the man in front of him, just like breathing. The other party was swallowing and spitting out huge energy all the time. Just an inadvertent move was enough to cause natural disaster like destruction. However, facing such a strong force, Li Anping only stayed there for a few seconds, and then looked around again. Compared with the man in front of him, why he was here was his primary question. Various detection rays were released from his body, and within a few tenths of a second, he had come to a conclusion. Has the space-time regulation been changed? Space-time regulation? I like the name you gave it. The silver-haired man opposite held up a junior high school 3rd grade math book and said, "Such a systematic and quantitative description of the entire natural world, this is something I have never thought of before. I have to say that although magic has given us powerful power, to a certain extent, it has also made us focus all our attention on magic itself, and ignore the details of nature." As he spoke, he had already walked in front of Li Anping. His eyes, as empty as the void, swept across Li Anping's body, and he slowly said, "This is my half-plane, just now. I stuck him and the gate together, just like two pancakes. When you pass through the gate, you have already arrived here, and all people or things that want to pass through the gate must pass through here. Then just kill you." While speaking, Li Anping had already taken action. No, it should be said that he had already moved before the sound came out. In the air around him, countless energies flowed into Li Anping's hands, and the movement between atoms had never been as intense as this moment. Every second, countless fusions and fissions occurred, and a series of chain reactions stimulated all particles, allowing them to release their own energy to their heart's content. When Li Anping punched out, the torrent of energy directly submerged everything in front of him, and it seemed that even the space was pierced by this punch, and a series of crisp sounds were heard in the entire half-plane. After a punch, the sky and the earth changed color, and the entire demi-plane library had completely disappeared, as if the painting on the canvas had been wiped off, revealing a white space. The silver-haired man was still standing in front of him, looking at the white space in front of him with a little regret. The library just now is my favorite scene. If possible, I am willing to spend my eternal life there to study the secrets of magic. The atomic explosion fist was ineffective. Li Anping frowned and looked at the strange space around him, and he understood something in his heart: the opponent's stored energy is almost infinite. As long as my attack cannot break the opponent's defense in an instant, then no matter how powerful the attack is, the opponent can withstand my offensive with infinite energy. No, it's more than that. In the hands of the silver-haired man, the math book was still intact, thanks to this advanced mathematical knowledge. It makes my demi-plane space more perfect. Speaking of which, among the knowledge on your earth, my favorite is mathematics. It is so beautiful. Classic, it is simply the most perfect language in the entire universe. Everything in nature, all problems can be solved through the imaginary space of mathematics. I won't ask you how you know these things, I'm afraid you won't tell me. While Li Anping said these words, he raised his hands at the same time. Countless positrons were gathered in his hands, and the terrible annihilation reaction was about to be born in his hands. The people I sent to the Mondo continent, are they in your hands? When the positron cannon in Li Anping's hand shot at him, the silver-haired man's always calm expression also changed a little at this moment. Hundreds of thousands of layers of protective force fields and elemental barriers were stacked in front of him, and the strength of each protective force field was hundreds of times that of Jonah. They covered the silver-haired man layer by layer, looking like a transparent lotus, slowly blooming in space. The positron cannon seemed to keep breaking layer after layer of glass, but every time a protective force field was broken, more protective force fields would be generated, until the huge energy of the annihilation reaction slowly dissipated in the air, and the silver-haired man still maintained an unharmed state. The opponent's attainment of magic skills is not inferior to Li Anping's combat skills. When the effect of the positron cannon ended, the silver-haired man shook his head in disappointment. I thought that people at our level, except for myself, should be ants. The fact that you still care about your subordinates shows that your mind is not mature enough. Is it because you are too young? Your experience is too short. Although you possess the power of God, your heart is still that of a mortal. Sighing, he continued, for people like us, the so-called country, nation, and bloodline are just passing clouds. For us, the truth of this world and the mystery of the entire universe should be ours. Real pursuit. He looked at Li Anping and said seriously, I am a magician, and just a magician. Studying magic and the mysteries of this world is my mission. His words did not make Li Anping stop attacking. Countless particles were moving at high speed on Li Anping's hands, and the temperature was rising at an unimaginable rate. 10,000 degrees, 20,000 degrees, 50,000 degrees. While manipulating these particles, Li Anping's eyes showed a hint of excitement. He looked at the silver-haired man and said slowly, what you call your idea is just that you have unrivaled power. The idea behind this confidence, the backward education, the corrupt society, and the powerful power completely blinded you. The temperature in the hands is still increasing, 100,000 degrees, 300,000 degrees, 700,000 degrees. Although the temperature continued to increase, the heat was firmly locked in Li Anping's hands and did not want to be revealed outside. Li Anping continued, I am very curious whether you can still say what you just said when you kneel in front of me. When Li Anping finished speaking, a red fireball visible to the naked eye appeared between his hands. Or a radiation mass. And its internal temperature has reached an unprecedented 2 million degrees, and is still increasing at a terrifying rate. Seeing this scene, the silver-haired man's expression changed slightly, and he said, okay, since you don't want to communicate with words, just use fighting to answer my question. But it seems that you don't quite understand the gap between us. Although science is great, magic itself is higher than magic and is the essence of the world. The next moment, the silver-haired man silently cast the 9th level spell Time Stand Still in just 10 seconds. Thousands of super high-speed incantations were recited from his mouth. When time passed, more than 30 kinds of ancient 10th level magic at the level of map cannons had been cast at will by the silver-haired man. The energy light waves that are enough to collapse atoms, the terrifying cold current that is enough to freeze the entire ocean, the ultimate dimensional slash that is enough to cut through a continent, and the fission ray that may be able to penetrate the core of the earth with just one blow. The silver-haired man's counterattack was so terrifying and violent that countless violent magics swallowed Li Anping whole in an instant. At this moment, the entire demi-plane seemed to have regressed back to the scene before the universe exploded. The so-called time and space lost their meaning at this moment, and the only thing left was pure destruction. Looking at Li Anping, who had been completely swallowed up by his own magic, the silver-haired man smiled proudly, "Just wake up here first." But the next moment, he already knew how wrong he was. Although based on the information Adam gave him, he had overestimated Li Anping's strength as much as possible, but when he actually faced it, only then did he realize that he still underestimated his opponent. A high temperature of more than 20 million degrees suddenly appeared where Li Anping was, which was comparable to the temperature at the center of the sun and enough to ignite the temperature of the entire earth in an instant. In a way that was so tyrannical that it was unreasonable and purely relying on force to overcome skill, all the magic in front of Li Anping was burned to ashes. It seems that ordinary attacks can't destroy you. With the energy at our disposal, if we continue to fight like this, we may not be able to finish it in a few years. After walking out of the scene that looked like a star exploding, Li Anping looked up. Looking around, he and the silver-haired man had appeared in an unknown starry sky. In the fight just now, the opponent obviously didn't care about continuing to operate his demi-plane. After the white space was shattered, the two of them appeared here. "Did you move the demi-plane here?" Li Anping looked at the high-temperature flames that erupted from him. After losing the shackles of the demi-plane, it was like the tongue of fire extending from the sun, sweeping towards the nearest planet. "Go, in a few days, when the flame radiation reaches the planet, the ultra-high temperature will probably ignite the entire planet's atmosphere in an instant, causing it to instantly regress back to what it was hundreds of thousands of years ago. Our power is too strong. I have to place the demi-plane here in advance." The silver-haired man directly talked to Li Anping using communication spells. "This is tens of millions of kilometers away from the Mondo continent. We can safely use our own the power. Since you don't like to communicate with words, I can only communicate with you with my fists. I just hope you can persist until I am satisfied. Don't fall down too early." Li Anping didn't care about the other party's words, but completely focused on the silver-haired man. He saw that the opponent's body had changed form during the attack just now, turning into a smoke-like existence. Is this the so-called elementalization? At this moment when he saw the other party's body, Li Anping's eyes seemed to flash with a hint of enlightenment, and countless numbers flowed crazily in his mind like a waterfall. "Come to think of it, we haven't introduced ourselves to each other yet, right?" At this moment, the other party spoke again. "What should I call you, the King of Demons? Or, Li Anping?" Li Anping smiled, his eyes emitting a dangerous light, and slowly said, "Dionysus, your title of demigod is really not water at all. As a reward for you, I will personally twist off your head and put it in my collection room. Come to think of it, this is the first time I have talked so much to my enemy." Li Anping's eyes showed excitement, "because none of them can make me so excited. You not only have power, but also have the wisdom to control power. From you, from magic, I found the way I want to find." Just when Li Anping and Dionysus disappeared from the Mondo continent at the same time, in the cloud courtyard, Adam slapped the table hard with his palm. With a loud bang, the entire marble table was melted into a dark colloid by Adam's palm. "This idiot," he cursed the man on the other side through the communicator. "Mephisto, what did you tell him? Didn't I tell you to keep an eye on him?" Just drag the demi-plane to the gate. Why did he go there himself? On the other side of the communicator, the person reporting to Adam was Mephisto, who was confirmed dead by the Alliance, Tyrael's national ability organization, and the supreme leader of the Annihilation Abyss. At this moment, he did not have the domineering aura of a supreme leader at all. Facing Adam's duties, even if his eyes were full of anger, he could only endure silently. Forget it, you can't control him. Just wait where you are. Contact me at any time if you have any news. Adam hung up the communication, and for the first time, a trace of uncontrolled anger appeared in his eyes. Originally, he just wanted Dionysus to send Li Anping out with a demi-plane. With a distance of tens of millions of kilometers, this could buy him enough time. At that time, relying on Dionysus's force, without Li Anping's interference, relying solely on the incarnation of mind energy, the Earth will be at a disadvantage in all aspects. Even better, the incarnation of mind energy will become his best target. This is Li Anping's first weakness. The entire Earth is his weak spot. After exiling him alone, in order to protect the Earth, the incarnation of mind energy will definitely try his best to stop Dionysus, but the current incarnation of mind energy is much weaker than his original body and can't stop Dionysus at all. All he can do is to be attacked by Dionysus continuously, and then the original body will bear the damage until the original body completely dies. Because during the time when his original body is away from the Earth, all human beings are our hostages. As long as he doesn't send the incarnation of mind energy back to his original body, he can only silently bear the attack of Dionysus. If the incarnation of mind energy is sent back, it is equivalent to temporarily giving the Earth to us. This is Adam's first plan. Even if he can't kill Li Anping and let Li Anping finally give up the Earth and send the incarnation of mind energy away, he can also severely damage the opponent and destroy and conquer all his men. All he has to pay is that Dionysus's half-plane is temporarily placed in the distant outer space and can't be used. But Adam didn't expect that Dionysus not only trapped Li Anping, but also took himself with him. In this matter, Dionysus's pursuit and desire for power and magic, and his desire to communicate with a strong man like Li Anping, exceeded Adam's control over the whole situation. The night beast on the side worried, "What should we do next?" He murmured, "It doesn't matter, let these two idiots fight to death, and we will implement the second plan. Li Anping must die." But in his heart, there is always a trace of worry. In the history he knows, Dionysus is different from the original. After mastering some scientific and technological knowledge, what kind of sparks will he and the current Li Anping create? This is difficult for him to predict. At this moment, he couldn't help but regret it a little. Maybe he gave Dionysus too much information. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, SpecialAbilities. Chapter 398. Just as Li Anping and Dionysus were having a passionate communication in outer space tens of millions of kilometers away from the magic star, Yanbei and Jingguang on the Mondo continent had fallen into a more dangerous situation. In the snow-capped mountains in the north, if you look down from thousands of miles above the ground, you can see the snow-white ground, as if a bottle of ink has been knocked over. The ink dyed the entire white land extremely dark. Countless black undead armies were surrounding the valley ahead. In the front row are the grey skeleton soldiers, with countless mottled scars still remaining on their decayed skeletons. The skeleton soldiers were followed by a large group of slow-moving zombies. They move slowly, and every step they take will leave an indelible stench on the earth. It is the toxins accumulated in their bodies for hundreds of years after their death. Tens of thousands of skeletons and zombies are just the vanguard of this undead army. Behind them, there are death knights, ghouls, abominations, skeleton mages, and countless other high-ranking undead spirits. And in the sky, there are tens of thousands of ghosts arranged densely in the void like crows. They push each other and even penetrate each other, emitting bursts of heart-stopping wails. In addition, there are 7 bone dragons hovering among the ghosts. As beings at the top of the undead system, each of these 7 bone dragons is over 100 meters tall. Streams of blue magical energy penetrated their bodies, turned into bursts of cold air, and dispersed into the void. Under their flight trajectory, they left behind clouds of white ice mist, each cloud comparable to liquid nitrogen at -200 degrees Celsius. Every time they flap their wings, they will cause bursts of commotion among the wandering souls. The undead army in front of them is not common even on the Mondo continent. Although magic has become the belief of everyone in the Mondo continent, superstition about gods has been broken. But necromancy, as a school that deals with corpses and ghosts all day long, is still hated by most people. The undead army in front of them was summoned by Sandro, a famous mage from the necromancy school in Mundo continent. Sandro immediately realized it when he heard that the demigod Dionysus would grant permanent solidification magic to the warriors who captured the evil spirits. This is an opportunity to clear the name of the school of the undead. He hurriedly took the wealth he had accumulated over hundreds of years and rushed to the border of the Saint Laurent Empire. Then, under the guidance of the messenger sent by Adam, the son of the demigod, he tracked the traces of more than a dozen demons in front of him, and finally trapped them in the snow-capped mountain valley in front of him. Under the command of Sandro, the bone dragon in the air let out an earth-shattering roar, and countless undead armies were already rushing towards the valley in front of them. A few minutes ago, in the valley, Yan Bei and his party looked at the black undead army in the sky with ugly expressions. Their group. In addition to Yan Bei, there are also Fang Yulan from Baiyu, Kevin as an accompanying medical officer, and Milia, who represents the wind among the 4 elements. She also has a sure-cutting sword. It had been 2 days since they came to this snow-capped mountain, but just this morning, countless undead suddenly surrounded the entire snow-capped mountain. Then there is the acid rain and poisonous fog floating in the sky. And skeletal warriors emerging from the ground. Several accompanying scientists were poisoned immediately. Although they are protected by nano-armor, they do not cover the entire head with nano-armor and use the internal air circulation system when they are not in combat. When they reacted from the sudden attack, the curse, or radioactive toxin spread by Sandro had penetrated from their skin into their blood, and gradually spread to every corner of their bodies. Although the nano-armor has activated the first aid device and life support system in time. However, severe radioactive poisoning still caused these weak scientists to fall into shock within a few minutes. They saw Kevin squatting beside them, and the green thought energy released from his hands was extending their lives. He was sweating profusely and said to Yan Bei standing aside, "It's radioactive toxins. The medical equipment here is too rudimentary. We need to return to the camp." Yan Bei shook his head, feeling the undead army detected by his mind energy, and said with a serious face, "We have been surrounded." Fang Yulan behind him wondered, "What is going on? There should be no one. Do you know our whereabouts? Did we stray into the conflict between the locals?" While the 3 of them were discussing the situation in front of them, Milia suddenly screamed hysterically. Her face was covered with cold sweat. His eyes were filled with panic. The impact of the death of the other 2 ability users still lingered in her mind. Just like that, she saw 2 ability users with abilities no less than hers being killed in an instant. She, who originally treated this investigation trip as a camping trip, collapsed in an instant. Unlike Yan Bei, Fang Yulan, and Kevin in front of her, Milia is a member of the upper-class nobles of the Federation, although she has excellent talents. They have quite a lot of combat experience, but they often fight against the wind, with the strong defeating the weak. Unlike Yan Bei, she had experienced countless battles with many level 5 ability users in the dream that were simply difficult to defeat. Not like Fang Yulan. He was born in the war-torn southern Xinjiang since he was a child, and experienced several years of mercenary career. It's not like Kevin from the underworld, who almost crawled out of the dead. Compared to the steely nerves of the 3 of them, the sudden attack in front of them and the death of more than half of their troops were enough to bring their spirits to the verge of collapse. She yelled, "Sam is dead. Kwen is dead too. We need support." Looking at Miria, who had lost her mind, Fang Yuan glanced at her, then retracted his gaze and said lightly, "Half an hour ago, our communicator could no longer contact the headquarters. Without a signal, support is impossible. Even if the general staff starts to send people to look for us, according to our current location, it will probably be 10 hours later." Speaking of this, Fang Yuan suddenly reacted, "So the natives of the magic world should not block our communication signals. But in this situation, is the other party really coming for us?" When Fang Yuan finished the sentence, Yan Bei on the side had slowly floated up. The steel gun in his hand had already activated its power, and a pair of huge silver-white wings extended from his back. In the blink of an eye, his body was wrapped in layers of metal armor. Seeing the sky pointed by the more than 2-meter-long steel gun, countless ghosts were rushing down towards the four of them. At the same time, the surging mental energy slowly ejected from behind Yan Bei in the form of a plasma engine. He said grimly, "We'll know what's going on when we leave a few alive." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xianglang Guo. Chapter 399. The next moment, the mind energy turned into a long plasma spray, pushing Yan Bei's speed to the speed of sound within a few tenths of a second. After a loud bang, Yan Bei had turned into a black straight line, piercing through the ghost array thousands of meters deep in the sky. At this time, the second half of his sentence was transmitted to the ears of Fang Yuan and the other two through the communicator: "Take care of yourself, I will deal with them." Compared with Jing Guang, who can use almost unlimited mind energy to protect the team members, Yan Bei's own ability and combat methods are extreme attacks. Just as he finished the sentence, hundreds of collapse force fields with a radius of more than 1 meter had already dispersed into the air around him. With just this one blow, thousands of ghosts were either crushed or cut in half, turning into countless dust and falling to the ground. After the blow, thousands of ghosts screamed and fled in all directions, forming a blank space around Yan Bei. While scattering and pushing away, their bodies had turned into a faint shadow. In order to avoid the opponent's next attack, it changed from a state that could affect the material world to a pure soul form. Sandro, who was several kilometers away, saw this scene through the eyes of the mage. He thought to himself, "Interesting abilities, interesting equipment. Maybe I should also leave a few living demons like Lord Dionysus as the next experimental material, they look much more interesting than ogres or halflings." Just as Sandro thought of this, the 7 bone dragons in the sky roared at the same time, and the icy breath in their mouths had already sprayed towards Yan Bei, who was staying in the sky. The ice fog, which was hundreds of times colder than the Siberian cold current, was enough to pull a town back to the Ice Age in an instant, and completely submerged the location of Yan Bei. The moment the cold wave submerged the body, Yan Bei's nano armor had already sounded a harsh low-temperature alarm. Looking at the temperature displayed on the display screen on the helmet, it had reached more than 100 degrees below zero and was still dropping at an alarming rate. Yan Bei sneered, "Compared to Solomon's molecular deceleration, this thing is just like a popsicle for children." After saying this, Yan Bei sprinted, and his whole body brought up a plasma spray of more than 10 meters long. He had already broken away from the ice fog and arrived at a height of thousands of meters that was difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. With a few clicks, 6 silver-white muzzles floating like small beetles slowly detached from Yan Bei's metal armor and floated around his body at the 6 points of the hexagram. The ability of the steel gun comes from Vivian Steel Saint. This ability will form various weapons powered by mind energy under the armor according to the user's personality, temperament, interests, etc. The 6 floating guns in front of him are strategic level weapons that combine the Steel Saint and Yanbei's collapse. Yanbei didn't want to get entangled with the native wizards in front of him. He had read the spell information and deeply understood that magic was a complex power system. Every powerful wizard has endless means. Compared with the purity of the ability users, their comprehensive abilities are stronger. So he was unwilling to get entangled with the prepared magician, but sought to quickly end the enemy before the other party knew his details. The next moment, white spots of light lit up on the 6 floating guns, and a force that was enough to destroy all matter had been aimed at the bone dragons and the army of undead under Yanbei's feet. Try to destroy most of the undead army, and don't let Kevin and the others be affected. Just as Yanbei activated the floating gun, Sandro on the surface looked at Yanbei in the sky with doubt. In his perception, a destructive force was emanating from the other party's body. Although he didn't know that this was the mind, the intensity of this strange energy was enough to arouse his vigilance. A series of mysterious spells rang out from his mouth. The next moment, the eyes of the 7 huge bone dragons bloomed with a faint orchid light. It was like 7 huge aircraft carriers, carrying endless death and cold waves and crashing into Yanbei in the sky. At the same time, thousands of skeleton mages on the ground also raised their hands. From their white knuckles, countless freezing, flames, electric currents, storms and other destructive magics shot out, and then intertwined in mid-air, forming a torrent of destructive magic. It sprayed towards Yanbei's position in the sky, and even the bone dragons in the sky had to dodge to the side wherever it passed. Although there were countless low-level magics contained in it. But when the number reached this point, the quantitative change became a qualitative change. After the chain reaction between them, it was enough to be comparable to the 10th level forbidden spells. Quantity is the specialty of the necromancer. Looking at the magic frenzy rushing towards him, Yanbei's face did not change at all. He just quietly waited for the floating cannon beside him to start. Spread the real destruction to this world. There was no sound, nor any light and shadow effects. When the collapse cannon was spit out from the mouths of the 6 floating cannons, all the previous attacks became pale in comparison. If the torrent of magic released by the skeleton mage under the command of Sandro was a movement of destruction, then the collapse cannon released by Yanbei would truly reduce everything to nothing. On the path of the collapse cannon, whether it was the bone dragons or the skeleton mages, all the undead armies were instantly compressed into countless singularities invisible to the naked eye. Not only that, even the air, sound, and light could not escape the capture of this force. Everything in front of me instantly turned into a vacuum. After one shot, the snow seemed to have been wiped out. More than 3/5 of the undead army disappeared completely. Only some of the skeleton warriors on the periphery and the ghosts in the sky that had completed the transformation survived. Sandro, who was several kilometers away, saw this scene in front of him and felt that his heart, which had stopped beating for a long time, seemed to have blood flowing out again. This undead army in front of him was accumulated by him for countless years of frugality and saving money. Looking at Yanbei in the sky, he roared, and saw a surge of black death from his body. The skull-like head, the arms made entirely of bones, and the empty cloak, he had completely transformed into the form of a lich after the human body was deformed, and flew into the sky. Accompanied by one mysterious spell after another, various protective barriers and enhancement spells gradually lit up on Sandro's body. 2 days later, the capital of the Saint Laurent Empire, Raven. In a tavern in a civilian area, more than a dozen soldiers who had just changed shifts were making a scene in the tavern. "Have you heard? That monster Sandro, he's dead," a veteran soldier in his 40s said to his companions behind him with a mysterious look on his face. As second-class civilians with some basic martial arts, they are slightly more flexible in their thinking than ordinary third-class civilians. But even so, the few gossips and taverns, as well as the more than 200 pounds of GNV in the tavern, are already their best entertainment. when the veteran told the news. The young soldier on the side said in disbelief, "How is it possible? That's the monster Sandro, his life box is still stored in the Mage Guild." The veteran smiled proudly and said, "I heard Lord Esquire say it himself." Just when the envoy of the Mage Guild reported to him. It is said that his life box stored in the guild broke by itself. That is the life box of the Lich. The veteran's words caused an exclamation in the tavern. The other two tables of soldiers from the city defense also pricked up their ears and looked in the direction of the veterans. Seeing this, the old soldiers' faces became more proud. Then the soldier who had previously shouted in disbelief asked again, "The Lich can also die? Did a magic marshal take action?" The so-called magic marshal refers to the strongest magician in each country. However, although there are many countries in the Mondo continent, only the 5 most powerful countries such as Saint Laurent can be considered to be worthy of the title and widely recognized by the entire continent, collectively known as the 5 Marshals. Hearing the question of the new recruit, the old soldier shook his head and said, "You guessed wrong. Each of the 5 marshals is stationed in the imperial capital and never leaves easily. How could they go to kill Sandro? This time, it is said that it happened on his way to hunt the Silver Demon." Hearing the 4 words Silver Demon, everyone gasped. Ever since Adam spread rumors about the earth in the name of Dionysus, the name of the evil demon has gradually spread throughout the continent. Because the Earth's expedition team was all covered with silver-white nano armor during the battle, some people called them Silver Demons. The city defense army on the side also stood up and said, "I heard that the bodies of those evil demons are all made of silver. As long as we catch one, we won't have to worry about our next life." The old soldier laughed and said, "Just relying on you, a weakling? I heard that in order to capture the silver demons this time, the Empire has planned to dispatch the Magic Corps. More than 3 towns in the north have been destroyed by those evil demons." The new recruits on the side nodded and added, "Yes, yes, I heard that those silver demons kill people on sight and can also emit a golden light. All people covered by the light will become gold coins and be collected by them." When saying this, the soldiers on the side all showed greedy eyes and nodded repeatedly, "So the demigod has to capture them." After hearing this, the old soldier spit and cursed, "You pig brains, how can the demigod be short of that money? The reason why these silver demons are captured this time is because they all come from hell and want to occupy our world." After the old soldier finished speaking, a man with a face full of flesh on the side the soldier said in a muffled voice, "If the sky falls, there are tall people to hold it up, and with the demigod here, it's not our turn to worry about such things. I think it's more like catching a silver demon. Have you heard that there was a soldier on the border who accidentally caught a lone silver demon and became rich? Not only was he promoted 3 levels, but the opportunity to solidify magic was sold for 5,000 gold coins." The new soldier shouted, "Is it true? A guy who can't do magic can also catch evil demons? You don't understand this. These silver demons are also strong and weak. The most powerful ones can fly and turn the world upside down. But there are also some weaker ones, not much stronger than those wizard apprentices. The captured silver demon has been sent to the Wizard Guild in the Imperial capital today. I heard that these evil demons are full of treasures. If you peel off their skin and wear it on your body, you will be invulnerable to swords and guns and have infinite strength." As the atmosphere of the conversation became more and more heated, the content of the conversation of these soldiers became more and more outrageous, gradually shifting from the information about evil demons to women and violence. In the corner of the tavern, a man wearing brown linen clothes, who looked ordinary, was the kind of man who could not be found in a crowd. He threw down a few coins and walked out of the tavern. After leaving the tavern, the man looked at the sky and stepped forward. He seemed to be just taking a walk, but he was moving very fast towards the alley. At the moment he turned the alley, his clothes changed and he was now wearing a half-body armor belonging to the city defense army. His face was blurred for a moment and then changed greatly. If you look closely, it was the city defense army who was making noise in the tavern just now. With the clothes and appearance of the city defense army, no one stopped him even in the night, so he walked smoothly through more than a dozen streets and came to the slums in the imperial capital. As the lights around him became dimmer, the man's speed became faster and faster, and in a blink of an eye, he had left a series of after images. Then he turned his body abruptly and got into the sewer. Then the half-body armor on his body changed again, and with the blur and clarity of his face, he had become a wanderer that could be seen everywhere in the sewers of the slums. Along the way in the sewer, you can see scavengers sitting around the fire in groups of 3 or 4. They looked at the man with dangerous and greedy eyes, but when they saw the man's strong arms and muscles, no one went up to him. After walking hundreds of meters, the man also sat next to a pile of fire, and saw the only scavenger next to the fire, who was Jingguang, who was dressed in a shabby manner. As for the rest of Tony and others, they had already rushed to the Amara basin. Only Jingguang and Lu Feng followed the arrested Lauren all the way to the imperial capital Raven. After seeing the man sit down, Jingguang first said, "How is it?" Then the man's face changed again, and he had become Lu Feng. He said with a sullen face, "Lauren has been sent to the branch of the Mage Guild in the imperial capital. It is the place I showed you today." After a pause, he looked at Jingguang's face and continued, "In the entire imperial capital, as far as I know, there are more than 10 mages gathered. There are more than 5 permanent mages in the Mage Guild. If we want to save Lauren, even if we are fast, we will have to face at least 5 mages. The nano armor may have been forcibly stripped off by them. With Lauren's willpower, he may have revealed all the information related to us. In my personal opinion, he has lost the value of saving, not to mention taking such a big risk." Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 400. Is there no value in saving him? Jingguang asked. Lu Feng said, "Yes, compared to the danger of saving Lauren, the value of saving him is too low." Seeing Lu Feng staring at him so closely, Jingguang said, "Don't worry. I won't be so willful as to risk so much to save him." After saying this, the atmosphere between the two fell into silence. This is the 6th day since arriving at the Magic Star. Tomorrow was originally the day to return to Earth after the first phase of the survey was completed. But neither of them expected that from the 4th day, the expedition team not only lost contact with the Earth, but was also chased by more than a dozen waves of mages. At the beginning, it was only some upper and lower mages who cooperated with the army to encircle and suppress them, but as the intensity of the battle continued to intensify, the wizards soon joined in, which brought great pressure to the entire expedition team. Although relying on Jingguang's powerful strength, they were defeated one by one. However, the endless means of the mages still brought great trouble to the expedition team. In particular, spells such as teleportation, charm spells, enchantments, and traps put the expedition team members who lacked magic detection methods into a desperate situation. In addition to the death of Ferland who had no ability and Lauren being captured, Brannels also lost an arm due to the fission ray. Thanks to his own strong physique and the emergency treatment device of the nano armor, he did not die. In particular, Jingguang and his team found that even with the high speed of Jingguang and the stealth ability of the nano armor, they could not get rid of the opponent no matter what. Even countless times, after they broke through, another group of mages blocked them in front. Finally, after capturing a high-level mage, after a round of bloody torture, they learned from the other party that Jingguang, as the strongest among their group, had been located by the prophecy mage of the Saint Laurent Empire. With the other party having the teleportation spell, they would definitely not be able to escape. So they divided into 2 teams. Tony and Yvonne took Brannels to the gate of the world. Lu Feng and Jingguang simply faced the challenge. They killed back all the way and followed the other party's whereabouts, trying to rescue Lauren. There are still 2 hours before their prophecy magic takes effect again. Let's leave here quickly. At this moment, Lu Feng looked at the dangerous light flashing in Jing Guang's eyes and suddenly said, "You kid, don't you want to destroy this imperial capital? Passive defense is not my style, and although there are many wizards here, as long as it is defense, it is impossible to be impeccable," Jing Guang said coldly. "Since Lauren can't be saved, in order to prevent him from revealing more information about the Earth, we have to kill him." Hearing what Jing Guang said, Lu Feng's breathing stagnated slightly. This is a plan he has always wanted to say but was worried that the other party would not agree, so he has never said it. Compared to going deep into the Mage Guild with layers of defense, saving Lauren, who is just an ordinary person, it is much easier for them to attack directly with their current means, eliminate or even destroy the entire building where the Mage Guild is located. Even if Lauren is not dead, they can also get rid of the bad temper of being chased like a dog in the past few days. 2 hours later, on Brighton Street in the capital of Raven, a dusty messenger knocked on the door of the Mage Guild. A minute or two later, a middle-aged servant opened the door with a creak, looked down at the messenger in front of him, and asked, "Who are you looking for?" The messenger's voice sounded a little nervous, as if he felt the majesty of the Mage Guild, and said nervously, "This is a package sent to Lord Laniers." The servant looked at the messenger hesitantly. He took the package from the other party carefully and said coldly, "I know, you can go." Before he finished speaking, there was a bang, and the door of the Mage Guild was closed again. The heavy iron door almost hit the messenger's nose directly, making the other party couldn't help but take a step back, but he did not show indignation at the servant's arrogance and rudeness. Instead, he looked up and looked at the 7-story building, and laughed frivolously. Then he left. The servant who received the package looked at the surface of the package and shook his head. Although there was nothing written on it. But since the other party specifically gave it to the wizard, it was not his business to interfere. He shook the bell on the wall, and half a minute later, a puffing sound rang in the air, and a pure black kitten with snow-white wings flew over. That was the familiar summoned by this branch of the Mage Guild. It exists as a spirit to help mages with their work and daily life. As pure magical creatures, they do not need to eat or drink, as long as they are paid a few gems every month. The middle-aged servant was no longer surprised by the existence of familiars. He placed the package in front of the familiar and said respectfully, "Lord Lanier's package?" The familiar nodded proudly, and then meowed in a very humane way, as if to say that he knew. Then he picked up the package in the servant's hand with his mouth and flew upstairs to the Mage Guild. In an independent office, Ranels was sitting behind his desk reading a newly published magic magazine. The several improved techniques for protective magic in the magazine made his eyes light up and he smiled. When the black cat familiar gently placed the package on his desk and meowed, Laniels raised his head, then took out a gem from his arms and threw it to the familiar. The cat happily took the gem and put it in the small pocket on his belt, then rubbed Laniels' hand flatteringly, and flapped his wings to leave his office. Laniels looked at the surface of the package on the desk and saw that it was completely empty. He frowned and said, "Is there no sender?" While speaking, his fingertips gently moved, and detection magic such as biological detection, toxin detection, and magic item identification had been released one after another. As a wizard, he was still very cautious, but as a wizard of the Magic Star, his common sense obviously bound him. The package in front of him was like a stone, and there was no reaction to the detection magic he released. Laniels murmured, "Could it be a gem, material, or magic book?" While speaking, he had already reached out and slowly opened the package. There was a wooden box in the package, and in the middle of the wooden box, a silver-white sphere was quietly placed in it. There was also a bright red number jumping on it. 2410. The numbers on the Mondo continent were obviously not Arabic numerals, so Laniels could not understand what the string of bright red, constantly jumping characters meant. He just picked up the metal sphere curiously. He knocked on the metal shell with his fingers and said with a puzzled look, "Is it a music box? But how are these jumping characters made?" As he said this, he put the sphere back into the wooden box, thinking that this thing was a relic made by some ancient wizard. At this time, the number on the sphere had jumped to 00:01. The next moment, a dazzling white light that was enough to blind mortals instantly shot out from the sphere. Lanyels had not had time to react, and the pressure of more than 1 million tons and the temperature of tens of thousands of degrees had completely wiped his body out of this world. Although the Mage Guild in the imperial capital was only a branch, it had hundreds of defensive magics deployed. It could defend against the frontal attacks of several magicians. But at this moment, the protective force field, flame barrier, silent field, and other protective magics in the Mage Guild all became as fragile as glass, and shattered in an instant. Then the terrifying high temperature and shock wave instantly engulfed dozens of streets around the Mage Guild, turning into a huge fireball rising from the ground. That night, countless poor people in the suburbs of the imperial capital seemed to have seen a huge mushroom planted near the center of the imperial capital. Jing Guang looked at the flames rising into the sky in the distance, and said to Lu Feng through the nano-armor communicator, "How is it?" Lu Feng's voice sounded a little messy, as if he was affected by the nuclear explosion. He said intermittently, "Damn, those crazy people in the Royal Academy of Sciences actually included such a powerful tactical nuclear bomb in the equipment of the nano-armor." Jing Guang smiled, and seemed to be very satisfied with the effect of the nuclear bomb. Since the Alliance has fully mastered the nuclear fusion and nuclear fission technologies, this tactical micronuclear bomb has become a conventional weapon of the army. The original goal was to destroy the fortifications on the battlefield, but now they are used as gifts, and the effect is not bad. Jing Guang replied, "Don't worry, this tactical nuclear bomb is very safe. Without authorization, even if you throw it into the magma, it will not explode. It's a pity that each nano-armor is only equipped with one." The explosion in the imperial capital destroyed more than 30 buildings including the Mage Guild, causing the death of 5,000 people, including 2 wizards. The other 3 wizards stationed in the Magician Guild escaped because of the preset dimensional gate and instant teleportation. However, the radioactive dust that permeated the sky of the entire imperial capital turned the ground within a radius of several kilometers into a restricted area for life. In the eyes of the people of Mondo continent, this is considered to be a curse planted by the Silver Devil. Not only the 3 surviving wizards lingered on the sickbed, but also countless civilians living in the imperial capital, under the power of the curse, suffered from hair loss, blisters, nasal and oral bleeding and sudden death. In a short time, countless civilians and nobles fled the imperial capital because they were afraid of the curse of the Silver Devil. While the news about the Silver Devils on the Mondo continent was becoming more and more popular, an exchange in outer space was also heating up.